Now we are.
Okay, thank you.
So we ready to start? Okay, great. Hello, everyone. My name is Sherry Hofshire, and on behalf of the Nebraska Arts Council, I'd like to welcome you to the Basic Support Grants Review Panel. This particular panel will be reviewing the applications for organizations that have an annual budget of under $200,000. The decisions that this panel will make regarding the funding of the applicants will be reviewed at the Arts Council's board meeting on June 9th. So let's start, first of all, by having each of our panelists introduce yourself, your name, your organization, your position, and where you're located. We'll start with Karis.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Karis Adams. I am the Director of Organizational Services at Mid-America Arts Alliance. Mid-America is headquartered in Kansas City, Missouri. I live in Fayetteville, Arkansas, but currently I'm in Dallas, Texas.
Thank you. Danielle?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Danielle Moriarty. I am the Program Director at the Maine Arts Commission. Our offices are located in Augusta, Maine, in the state capital, and I live on the beautiful coast in Bath, Maine. And much of my work focuses on managing our creative communities and our public art and Percent for Art programs.
Thank you. Hannah?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hannah Spencer. I'm calling in from Phoenix, Arizona, and I work for the Arizona Commission on the Arts as their Creative Capacity Grant Manager, giving out general operating support funding.
Thank you. Lori?
Hi, I'm Lori Williams. I'm the financial manager and owner of an insurance agency in Norfolk, Nebraska, which is where I am. And if you can hear it, we've got tornado sirens going off in the background. They're just the practice ones, no warnings. Because in our world, in the insurance world, we're really into weather. I would just like to preface that I really have no arts background, but I'm very excited to be a new member of the Nebraska Arts Council. I have been a part of many not-for-profit organizations that have submitted grants, not these basic support grants, more like event type ones. And the process is lengthy and involved. And it's very interesting sitting on the backside of this, now doing the evaluation. So I am really here in a learning role. I'm going to just learn from all of your comments.
I should also mention for those of you who are tuned in that Lori is a new member of the Nebraska Arts Council Board and is doing this in an auditory position. So she is auditing it to learn about the entire process and what's going on across the state. Okay, Suzanne.
Hi, everyone. Suzanne Wise, former director at the Nebraska Arts Council, retired at the end of 2022. And it's kind of great to be back. I've really enjoyed being in a reviewer capacity. I mean, you know, we obviously did that, or I did that as a staff member at the Nebraska Arts Council, but to just see how you're all doing has been a delight for me. So thank you.
Thank you. Mike Markey, our Executive Director of the Arts Council, do you have anything you would like to say?
I'd love to. Good morning. And thank you all for the work that you do within your organizations and your community. As you've heard from the panel that you have assembled in front of you, there's some wonderful experience, not only with arts organizations, but with arts organizations' relationships to their communities. And so I encourage you, obviously you feel it's important because you're here this morning, but I encourage you to listen carefully what they have to say. I think you'll find that they have a wealth of information, and I know I'm going to be listening to everything that they have to say too. Lori, thank you for joining us, and you short yourself. Lori has been very involved in the Creative District up in Norfolk, and so she comes from a business person's standpoint, and she knows the importance of the work that you guys do within your community, so that's very valuable. I did want to give you an update real quickly about where we are with the Nebraska Cultural Endowment. As you all know, there was legislation this year that removed $5 million from the Cultural Preservation Endowment Fund. That's the public side of the Cultural Endowment, which helps fund your grants. Actually, about 41% of your grants comes from that wonderful endowment that the state set up 28 years ago. I want to let you know that we do all of our budgeting a year in advance, and so the money for next year is already in place. So what I'm telling you is that you'll see no change in terms of what funding comes from that legislative action this year. We will be working hard to see that it doesn't affect things in the future, but everything will be good for this year. And that brings me to my final point, and it is because of that that it is more important than ever that you take time to engage with your elected officials, especially at the state representative, the state senator. As you all know, we just finished the primaries. And so many of you in your communities will have new candidates that will be vying for votes this summer. Perfect time to be listening to anything that you have to tell them or show them about your organization and your community. Now is when they'll be listening. So I encourage you to reach out to them, invite them to your events, explain to them the importance of public funding for your organization, and especially the importance of the cultural endowment, that public-private trust, and what it does to sustain the arts organizations in the communities throughout the state, like you and your work. So thank you all again for your work, and enjoy the process. Thank you, Sherry.
Thanks, Mike. Rachel, would you explain the panel process for today to anyone who's listening in?
Thanks, Sherry. And thank you to everyone joining in today. The reviewers have read and reviewed the applications prior to this panel and have scored them according to the rubric that was linked in the application. Applicants are encouraged to listen to the reviews, but will not be able to interact with the panelists. Written minutes will be provided to all applicants. Award notices will be sent after the Nebraska Arts Council board meeting. The Nebraska Arts Council staff are here to answer any questions for applicants before applications are submitted, but we are not a part of the panel discussion. This conversation is for the panelists, and staff are here to clarify questions about process only.
Thank you. So we're ready to begin. I'll call upon the panelists one by one for their comments in this order: primary reviewer, secondary reviewer, and then the remaining two reviewers one at a time. So we'll proceed now with the first applicant. Rachel?
Our first application is from Aubin Music at First Plymouth, which is located in Lincoln, Nebraska. This grant will provide operational support to Aubin Music at First Plymouth for the fiscal year 2026-27.
Okay, we will begin primary viewer, Suzanne.
Thank you, Sherry. This application is thoughtful, data-driven, and is full of anecdotes that illustrate points outlined in the narrative. The organization uses supplemental materials to great effect. Their program offerings are diverse and of high quality and are offered free of charge in consideration of a donation to a highlighted nonprofit service partner. They have seen a 5% increase in on-site attendance from 24-25 to 25-26, which is impressive in the current economic environment and is a testament to the effectiveness of their evaluation and outreach techniques. They have produced a very thorough and professional strategic plan. Their professional staff attends national choral music conventions to evaluate new ensembles, which, again, for an organization of this budget size is commendable. This is, I like the fact that this organization is not afraid to discuss their challenges, and they're framed in relationship to their strategic plan. They do a biennial board self-assessment survey and discuss the results at a board meeting, which I am sure contributes to the number of thoughtful assessments that are sprinkled throughout the narrative. Audience donations to the service organizations paired with each concert has increased 56% from 24-25 to 25-26. In reviewing their budget, unearned income comprises the bulk of the budget income. They are particularly reliant on Lincoln's Give to Lincoln Day, which comprises close to 75% of the total. I suspect Aubin Music's extensive outreach to organizations that serve people in need is part of the reason this number is so high. As long as they maintain audience interest in their concerts, coupled with the altruistic marriage of free admission in exchange for support of a community service organization, this strategy is sustainable, I think. Audiences can either donate directly to the organization or through the QR code printed in the program. I like the fact that they take advantage of ad swaps with other cultural organizations in Lincoln, which helps to maximize their name recognition. The list of partnerships run the gamut, excuse me, of social service and community nonprofits. Lincoln Public Schools has 8 high schools, and fortunately, they receive more or less an equivalent budget for teachers and equipment. But extras may vary, so kudos to the Lincoln Northwest High School Music Boosters for jumping in to obtain music equipment for their choir. They do work with area schools to provide master classes, and I would have liked to have known how they select the school to work with. Aubin Music takes advantage of their location in a diverse and economically challenged neighborhood adjacent to downtown Lincoln. The fact that many of First Plymouth Church's neighborhood outreach programs lay the groundwork for trust and collaboration helps to give Aubin Music a leg up in their efforts, such as the Performing Arts Day Camp, which engages neighborhood children. Their live-streamed events are extensively utilized. An unsolicited email thank you in the support materials describes how the writer's mother-in-law, who was experiencing a rough patch and was unable to attend a concert, gained respite and hope from one of the concerts viewed online. I appreciated their detailed explanation of accessibility, which includes reasons why some strategies are not used, either situationally or due to the physical layout. I want to stress that they do meet ADA accessibility requirements, but not some of the nice-to-have strategies, which to me demonstrates how thoroughly they evaluate what they can do outside of standard compliance. Their advocacy efforts are first-rate, and they've included examples of their elected official communications as part of a work sample that is a catch-all of social media and email comments, thank you notes, and other communications of interest, which I found highly effective. This application was a pleasure to read, and I can't really cite any concerns. I think they should just keep doing what they've been doing.
So you're muted, Sherry.
Sorry, excuse me. Thank you. Karis?
Wow, Suzanne, that was very thorough. I have, looking at my notes, I have 4 lines. They had very robust programming, which I enjoyed, a variety of musical offerings. I also highlighted the use of data and utilizing the audience feedback to guide the programming and considerations, in addition to the financial and market impact in the budget. I think you summed it up perfectly. I found this application to be very strong and thoughtful and clear in what they want to do for this upcoming programming year and season.
Thank you. Danielle?
Yeah, I don't have too much additional points to add. I think Suzanne and Kara has really covered much of it. I think this is a really strong application. There's an impressive overall quality and ambition of the programming that they're providing. The organization, seems to be really focused on creating a season that is both artistically rigorous as well as community centered, which I really appreciate. I think they're very organized, intentional, and thoughtful in their planning. The strategic plan is really clear and actionable, which is fantastic. I appreciated that the organization has a consistent use of audience feedback, attendance tracking, board self-assessment, and strategic plan updates to really kind of monitor their success. Again, kind of going off of Suzanne's comments, they have a clear commitment to accessibility and the free programming, youth engagement, community partnerships. I think overall this was a really, really strong application.
Thank you. Hannah?
Yeah, I also scored this pretty strong. The only needle I would love to thread here is how much I love the donation inspired support of the organization, less reliant on sales and ticket sales. I would be curious, with current trends, with contributed revenue decreasing across the board, I would love to know what their, backup resources look like, if they're investigating any other additional partnerships to maybe help support that long term. Just get nervous with the way things are trending. Other than that, I fully agree with my fellow panelists.
Okay. Next one, Rachel?
Let's give everybody a chance.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. We need.
Look, if you wanted to add anything, please feel free.
And when you're done, give us a thumbs up when you feel that your score is complete. Okay. Now, Rachel, thank you.
All right. And I think my video might be lagging a little bit. So if I am freezing at all, please just let me know, and I'll work some magic on the back end. Our next application is from Alliance Arts Council. This organization is located in Alliance, Nebraska. And this grant will provide operational support to the Alliance Arts Council for fiscal year 2026 through 27.
All right. Harris?
Yep, that is me. All righty. Looking at all of my notes. Alliance Arts Council. These are also, we had so many great applications, and this one isn't really any different. They're committed to diversity, education, equity, and quality of the work. They're in a rural location. I have no idea where Alliance is, but they are supporting, I believe they said, a variety of zip codes in the application. Apologies, y'all, my Slack is going off. In their rural location, they have a challenge of getting people to the work and experiencing the programming. They've identified strategies and workarounds, and they're hoping to use some of the funds to support this work. Overall, I thought the application was really great. My only hiccups was the lack of data in some areas, and then hope that they'll be more direct in the future. They had a very broad description of like folks are consulted when determining the work. And that the community served was also pretty broad. But this is an ongoing evaluation, and surveying is another thing on top of these small organizations that are doing some really, really hard work. And so nothing really stood out too much in like a negative sense. I don't believe that any of them were very negative, actually. The only other thing, I can't think of anything. I enjoyed reading about their various partnerships, their community outreach, their audience engagement, and their advocacy. I just hoped for more data. Anybody want to add anything? Who's next up?
Okay.
Danielle.
The secondary is Danielle.
Thanks for that primer, Karis. Agreed overall. I thought this to be a really thoughtful application. The Alliance Arts Council is clearly playing an important role in bringing, these quality arts experiences to a rural region. I think I was really impressed with the artist residency program, and that this was an opportunity for students to work directly with artists and perform publicly. I do think that the descriptions, again, I think this is going back to the point that Karis made about detail. I think the descriptions of each artist are a little brief, and there's not a lot of detail about why specific artists were being chosen. So kind of, why simply three? What makes Monica McSwain the right fit for fourth graders? So just a little bit more of that thinking, I think, would go a long way, and just the why and not just the what. The strategic plan was really functional and covered the right territory. I think that it reads a little bit more like a mission statement with objectives rather than an actionable plan, but overall it was realistic for an organization of its size and scope. And you can really tell that the core mission of this organization is lived out in everything that they do. They have a really strong element of outreach and engagement. I think that they're doing a good job of reaching out and trying to incorporate different populations and backgrounds.
Thank you. Hannah?
I agree with my fellow panelists. I would further uplift that I'd love to see more action items in the strat plan. I think that's a great opportunity to put that information there for us. And I would also like to uplift the component of how are pieces selected. This is obviously a very community-centered organization. Yeah, just fine tuning instead of giving broad statements about how things are selected would really take this one home for me.
All right. Suzanne?
Yeah, just to hook on to what Hannah just said, I think that the importance of support materials in this case are really crucial to understanding that relationship between Alliance Arts Council and the schools, because I think the letter, particularly from the Lutheran school, kind of outlined exactly how important it is that the Alliance Arts Council is there to act as the administrator for putting artists in schools. Alliance is now a creative community, which I'm delighted to know. And so I hope that in future applications, they'll really talk a little bit more about how they are connecting with creative districts. They do work with the Carnegie Arts Center, which I think is kind of nice because Alliance is not a big community. And so the Alliance Arts Council kind of does the presenting aspect. The Carnegie Arts Center does the visual arts aspect, but in both cases, okay, now how does that work in concert with the creative district goals? And that would be really nice to know. I think that in some cases, the narrative does spell out kind of step-by-step ways of how they go about doing things. But as previous panelists suggested, there might be a little more amplification of those steps in other parts of the application itself. I was really pleased to read about their advocacy efforts and encourage them to keep inviting elected officials to their events, even though sometimes those elected officials they know are not particularly supportive of the arts in their part of the world. And just to answer the question, Karis, Alliance is, I don't know, what would you say, staff, that all those years of doing Office on Wheels and driving all the way to Alliance, that's about a 6-7 hour drive? Am I right? 7 hours. So we're almost to Wyoming there.
Okay.
And so that is a long way, and it just kind of demonstrates how important these little arts councils are to kind of keeping the arts alive. But it also, I think, indicates that those voices of advocacy for the arts in rural Nebraska are so critical to the success of the Nebraska Arts Council support from the legislature and also the cultural endowment. So keep it up. I'm really glad that you are doing that. And I'm glad to see that they are members of Nebraskans for the Arts, which is the state's advocacy organization. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you. All right, would you take a few minutes and just recheck your scores, adjust them if you feel you need to, and when you're ready, thumbs up, please. Okay, then we're ready to move on to the next one, Rachel.
So next is Carnegie Arts Center, which is also located in Alliance, Nebraska. And this grant will provide operational support to the Carnegie Arts Center for fiscal year 2026.
Okay, Danielle.
Yeah, I really found this to be a very strong and inspiring application. Carnegie Arts is clearly serving both as an arts organization and as a community anchor. I think that they have really shown strong leadership, meaningful partnerships, and a true commitment to making the arts accessible and impactful for its community. I especially appreciated the organization's work with seniors, youth, individuals with developmental disabilities, and their commitment to public art and artist collaborations. I think that they really have a thoughtful and realistic understanding about their own capacity, about staffing, their financial challenges. Their strategic plan was clear, detailed, and really grounded in lots of practical goals. I can tell that they're thinking about sustainability, partnerships, and I appreciated their honest discussion about staffing limitations, donor fatigue, and balancing growth with sustainability. They're clearly doing a lot of reflective thinking about who they are as an organization and what they can do. They are really kind of showed a really strong commitment to serving rural and underserved populations. Again, their partnerships are really just so strong. They have their free and low cost programming, accessible public events. So overall, I felt that their outreach and engagement felt really authentic, consistent, and community centered.
Okay, thank you. Karis?
I have nothing to add. I think Danielle summed it up perfectly.
Right, Suzanne?
The only things that I'd like to add is bravo for taking on the role of the creative district administrator. I think that the creative district is in good hands with the Carnegie Arts Center at the lead. I wanted to say a couple of things about their fundraising. I was really excited to see how they structure their fundraising gala, because they've done so strategically so that volunteers with limited ability to give are still engaged, so that it really becomes more of a community event than this kind of exclusive event that really caters to people that have the ability to give at a higher level. And I think that just shows that this organization really knows its community and is sensitive to the needs of the community in a much broader sense. And I thought that their letters of support were particularly impactful. So I think, again, it's a thoughtful approach in terms of how they structured this application.
Okay, Hannah?
Yeah, I agree with my fellow panelists. I think the only piece I'd like to uplift is within the evaluations, I applaud them for considering capacity first to make sure, like, does this make sense for us internally? I'd love to see a little more consistency in surveys of participants themselves and of audiences themselves. It seems like that is available, but not as consistent maybe as they would like. So that would be my only recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Would you all please take a few minutes and recheck your notes and see if you want to adjust anything, and then a thumbs up. Okay, we're ready to move on to the next one, Rachel.
All right, our next application is from the Circle Theater, which is located in Omaha, Nebraska. And this grant will provide operational support for the Circle Theater for fiscal year 2026-27.
All right, Hannah?
All right. So for the artistic excellence criteria, what I indicated was incredibly thoughtful work to consistently provide such high-level inclusive programming. It was really brilliant to read about and well written with story, which I really appreciated. The examples were really there. I also appreciated the demonstrated value of the organization's work with the amount of information that was provided. However, I would love more information about how many people participate as actors in productions, or how many folks are backstage would be also lovely to know. What's the percentage of disabled participants would be really interesting to know. So more data would really have solidified this as with a little bit of a higher score in that criteria for me. With planning and evaluation, I appreciated the multiple ways the organization collects feedback. I think that's absolutely wonderful and accessible, and how flexible they are at implementing the feedback immediately if necessary. That reflective and responsive aspect to their programming was incredible to read about. The strategic plan is helpful. So it was like lovely to see how well thought out that process was. You could tell that they had spent quite a bit of time with it. And something that I noted of theirs that was really helpful as somebody outside of the organization was where they are in each step, really indicating exactly what status they're at, how that process is going for them, really made me feel like I was in the room and really understanding how their organization thinks. I also appreciated the acknowledgement that providing free programming is really tough and requires a lot of planning and donations, and they are very aware of that challenge, which speaks highly to their awareness of their needs and how to sustain long term. And for outreach and engagement, I noted that they well described their process for starting education first and building with community partnerships, then letting that feed into further relationship building and outreach. So I really appreciated the attention to transportation. That's hugely overlooked, and seeing that in a rural space was incredible. And then my last note here is just an impressive list of partnerships. The letters of support really sealed the deal for this one. They were so varied, and they all had this very consistent through line of accessibility. So really walking the walk with this one.
Thank you. Danielle?
Thanks, Hannah. That covers a lot of the thinking that I had on this as well. I think that was just really, really wonderful to hear about all the work that they're doing. You can really tell that the programming is built from the ground up in a very collaborative approach, and isn't just kind of being put upon people. I loved the Echoes of the Prairie, that this exists as both a full ensemble and this touring version, that they're really leveraging what they're doing in-house and being able to expand that into other parts of the state. And I think it's an important step towards visibility and accessibility. In terms of planning and evaluation, the budget seems healthy and well balanced. They clearly have a good diversification of support coming from grants, earned income, donations. I'll echo the partnership aspect as well, was something of note to me. You can tell that their community partner list is long, but also deep, that this is really something that they have really strong partnerships that they're working with alongside other folks. Let's see. I was also really impressed with the internship and apprenticeship opportunities for artists with disabilities. Again, these kind of really emphasize the going beyond participation and really helping create real pathways for change and for growth. And yeah, it's really clear that this organization is thinking about its values and long-term relationships and shared creative work with its community partners. I think that was the big take-home message for me.
Thank you. Karis?
I don't really have anything to add, other than that it was an exciting application to read, with the community that they're targeting, specifically like the disabled community, understanding the limitations, for our disabled brethren to access entertainment sometimes, or oftentimes. Um, it was an exciting calendar. It was exciting to think about all the things that they could do, and including the partnerships. Again, as we already discussed, it was just about the data, and having a little bit more of that, and some of the consistencies and like frequency for which they evaluate, would have been a great addition. But I applaud Circle Theater and the work they're doing.
All right. Suzanne?
Yeah, I was just kind of blown away by the diversity of their funding and the depth of their development activities. And again, I have the advantage of knowing about this organization for quite some time. And this is a very healthy organization, both in terms of their work and their financial capacity, which has not always been the case. Their mission has always been a wonderful one, but to see it blossom and expand the way it has is, well, kudos to them. And I just back to what Danielle noted about the internships. They're paid internships, which is wonderful. I was glad to see that. And I also want to give them a shout out. They are members of Nebraskans for the Arts, and I know that they participate in the legislative day and other activities that Nebraskans for the Arts sponsors. And again, in this environment where not-for-profits that work with segmented disability communities, it's important that elected officials really make those connections about how the arts are part of and integral to how we support our communities of people that have disabilities. So kudos for them to understanding that and having that as part of their mission.
Great, thank you. Once again, take some time, thumbs up when you're ready. Okay, moving on then, Rachel.
Our next application is from the Community Players, which is located in Beatrice, Nebraska. And this grant will provide operational support to the community players for fiscal year 2026-27.
All right, we'll start with Hannah.
Thank you so much. Reviewing my notes real quick. Stunning. All right. So for the artistic excellence criteria, my notes indicate that the application uplifts the connections with actors from within, you said Beatrice is how you say it?
Mhm.
Okay, great. And also the hiring of folks from the Capitol, which speaks highly to their ability to provide a great working experience. They were talking about how people return to them. They'll drive many miles to come and perform with this group, which tells me they treat their actors really well and their performers really well. It's apparent that this organization provides a unique service for their community, demonstrated by the 60-mile radius that they've gained audiences from. For planning and evaluation, this was also a strong criteria for me. I appreciated the various opportunities for feedback, though I am curious how successful the return rate is for a biannual audience survey rather than after each performance. So I would like to know a little bit more about that. Is it fruitful for them? What kinds of feedback are they getting? The money for this organization, the money that they invested in their strategic plan is really fantastic, and I think it really paid off. It was clear and concise. I could see where they want to go, really well outlined. And it's really great to see how far they've come already. This was another organization that indicated their progress through their strategic plan, which again, really appreciated that insight. For outreach and engagement, it was great to see the real-time impact of investment in accessibility services. I also appreciated information about the more involved partnerships and then the inclusion of the smaller promotional projects. It's great to see the return of students to be stage managers. Again, this is saying that people really like being here. They want to return. There's something about this hometown feeling, like this feels comfortable for folks. Let's see, great to see the return of the students, demonstrates the strong community ties and engagement through their students returning, but also throughout the application. They demonstrated many instincts that they fully understand what their community needs. The application also demonstrates what's actively happening within advocacy efforts, but I'd love to know the plan of their long-term goal of those efforts. Do they have any, big things they'd like to achieve? Would they like to get particular legislative members out? It could have just been like a little bit more detailed for me. And that's it.
Terrific. Thank you. Suzanne.
Okay, community players, in my opinion, is the data champs of the day. I mean, they measure everything, and it's wonderful to know that it's not just Beatrice. I mean, Beatrice is now becoming kind of a bedroom community for Lincoln, but the fact that they have a percentage that they can state of the number of people that will drive 30 miles to go to one of their productions is super. And you wouldn't know that unless you were really diligent about keeping those kinds of statistics. I agree with everything Hannah has said. I like the fact that they are including a ban on AI use, which I think is clearly they're up to date on some of the issues these days with the performing arts, and good for them. I think their fundraising strategies are specific, and they've indicated they've not pursued planned giving and memorial donations, but have outlined steps in their strategic plan to develop strategies in this regard. And I do think they need to do that. I think their advocacy efforts, they put in this little gem, which I think is important, which I think, can I quote it? Okay. Frequent contact is made with elected officials. Correspondence includes specific mentions and examples of the organization's impact and short congratulatory postcards when one of their major efforts is successful, even when it doesn't relate to the arts, which, for their state senator to hear from an arts organization that says, great, thank you for supporting fluoride in the water, I mean, it's just, that's good. And then a follow up on that, and I think that kind of advocacy pays off because they note that the Beatrice City Council and mayor have, quote, been instrumental in helping us get our upcoming capital campaign for a new facility started. Well, there you go, cause and effect. And I think that community players kind of does that very, very well. So again, I'm going to note that they are members of Nebraskans for the Arts, and they play a leadership role, and kudos for them to be part of that very important advocacy effort that keeps us going.
Thank you. Danielle?
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything particularly new to add to what Suzanne and Hannah have already said. I think Community Players has shown high quality programming, thoughtful planning, strong accessibility efforts, deep community involvement. They clearly are playing an important role in the cultural life of its community and a commitment to growth and improvement. So nothing new to add.
All right. Karis?
Nothing new to add. I've been to Beatrice. I think we had, Rachel, were we there together a couple of years ago for like a NAC event, perhaps?
Yes.
Creative District Assembly.
Right.
There we go. I was like, I've
Yes.
been there. And it was a beautiful place and a great place to visit. But I thought it was a fantastic application and they're doing some great work.
Terrific. All right, then all of you recheck your notes and thumbs up. Okay. The next one, Rachel.
Our next application is from the Fremont Area Art Association, which is located in Fremont, Nebraska. And this grant will provide operational support to the Fremont Area Art Association for fiscal year 2026.
All right, and the first panelist is Karis.
All righty. Again, another stellar application with quite the lineup of programming for the next year. Additionally, I really enjoyed how they decided on the programming. They laid out some very direct questions as to how they come to the decisions that they made, 1 through 8, I believe, and they were also very aware of their own challenges and opportunities, which I appreciated seeing in the application. I really didn't have anything that I thought they could, quote unquote, work on. I found their evaluation process to be pretty clear. Again, I always like data, but I think that's just where I am as an administrator these days. I believe that most of what we do is read about numbers. And I also thought their strategic plan was pretty clear for me to interpret, and I enjoyed how it was broken down in the measurements and goals there. And so I didn't really have anything to add to Fremont other than that was a great application.
Right, Danielle.
Yeah, again, another strong application. I think, overall, this is a really vibrant, community-centered organization. You can tell that they care deeply about the role of arts in everyday life, have strong artistic programming, good community engagement, a good ability to leverage their partnerships and volunteer energy to create these meaningful experiences. I really appreciated the 1 minute past normal exhibition, which I think was a really interesting integration of history and storytelling and healing and visual art in a way that really felt rooted in community. So I really appreciated that. I think they are doing an impressive amount of work for a small staff and volunteer base. I thought their strategic planning process was intentional and well integrated into the day-to-day operations. It was encouraging to see that the executive director's reports are directly tied to strategic planning goals, which really, makes them feel really, you can tell that enables them to be really focused and holds themselves accountable. Yeah, I think that, overall they're really going deeper into this idea of them not just being an art space, but a true community arts center. And I think that comes through really clearly in their application.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Just a couple of things. I just going back to the strategic plan, which again I thought was really great. It was nice to see that they pursued underwriting for the plan, because I think sometimes people get stuck thinking, oh my goodness, we don't know how to do this ourselves, or we can't find, how are we going to get this done? Well, they pursued underwriting, and by goodness, they got it, and they have a really great plan. A couple budget things. They are establishing a Fremont Area Art Association Legacy Giving Society, and I think that's a great idea. I noticed in their budget that they do an endowment drawdown as part of their income, and I'd kind of like to know, is that done annually? I just kind of like to know a little bit more about that, because sometimes that can be kind of a red flag if you have to resort on doing an endowment drawdown if it's like you can't make the budget balance. But sometimes you're just lucky that you have that annual income. So it would have been nice to know which way it is with the Fremont Area Art Association. I'm glad to see the activities they are undertaking is a collaboration with Fremont's Creative District. I think that's really critical that if you've got a creative district, I think it should be kind of part of what you're doing as an organization. And I'm kind of been looking as I went through all of these applications to see if they're mentioned or just exactly what those collaborative efforts are. And I think it's really great that they lend so much wall space, as it were, for kids to have their exhibitions. I mean, that's a wonderful thing, to have your fourth grader putting up their artwork and the whole family can come and admire it in kind of a professional setting. And kudos to Fremont for having a organization that can do that.
Thank you. Hannah?
Nothing to add. My fellow panelists just nailed it. And Suzanne, yeah, you really took it home there. Thank you.
Okay, folks, we are now gone through we have 7 left. Do you want to undertake another one before we take a 5-minute break or so? Or do you want that 5-minute break now?
I could go for a 5.
Okay, then let's take a 5-minute break. Is 5 minutes long enough, folks? Okay, let's take a 5-minute break then, and we'll come back and go on and see how far we get. Thank you.
This is Jennifer. I just wanted to check in really quick. Is everybody's scores working okay for them? Are you able to? Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, but I just opened one and I'm missing notes. Has that happened to anybody else? No?
Okay, let me check on that, Hannah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's maybe I saved something wrong, but my other ones seem to be working fine, so that must have been a me issue. I think it was a self error or a human error.
Okay, okay. Thanks for letting me know.
Jennifer, I did log out of it in case you.
Yes, thank you.
Are we all back yet?
Let's see. It looks like we're still waiting on Danielle and Elizabeth. Are you back with us?
I'm here.
Okay. So I think we're just waiting on Danielle.
Okay.
Okay, Sherry, I think we're good.
Okay, then we're ready to welcome back, everybody. Go ahead, Rich, on the next one.
All right. Our next application is from the Hastings Symphony Orchestra, which is located in Hastings, Nebraska. And this grant will be for the operational support for fiscal year 2026.
All right, Suzanne?
Okay. Okay, with the 100th anniversary, wow, and the transition from longtime conductor Byron Jensen to Tyler White, I was impressed that the organization seized on the opportunity to develop an innovative 4-year plan organized by season from the 98th year to the 101st year, which with each season focused on specific goals. I mean, I thought that was just a brilliant way to kind of break that down and track it. The supplemental materials included thorough job descriptions for personnel and board members, which was great, and detailed the responsibilities of each committee, and bravo to them for that. Fundraising strategies are good, and congratulations on securing a lead matching gift. My only concern is that I didn't see much evidence that the plan addresses the changing demographics of their service area, which I think will impact community investment and financial support for the Hastings Symphony in the long term. So I wish the support materials would have included documentation of how schools know about the free tickets and mentorship opportunities. How is marketing accomplished to other communities in their service area? I give high marks for developing an ad hoc education committee that included music educators from surrounding schools. Using demographic data to adjust programming that appeals to youth, I think, is great. I wish the discussion of advocacy was more specific. The application states that local elected officials are aware of the orchestra's impact. More specificity of how that is accomplished would certainly be welcome. And I think that is all I've got. Let me see here. Yeah, you know what? I kind of skipped the very first artistic excellence, so I don't know. Who was missing? Was that Danielle? Was that you that there was a section missing? Well, I don't have that excuse. I just kind of scrolled down. So, to finish, Central Nebraska is lucky to have a professional orchestra, and the extent of its programs and services are clear from the narrative and support materials. And I love their mission statement, which is we enrich lives through great music. I love simple and direct mission statements. It's easy to remember and great for planning because it implies how is this project enriching lives? Overall, good variety of education and outreach programs, collaborations, and performance options. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, Hannah.
Yeah, as always, Suzanne, way to set us up. Yeah, that was beautifully said. I would add, I would love to hear more about the same kinds of direct feedback they're collecting from artists, from their attendees, and have that integrated into revisions year to year as well. And I would have benefited from another letter of support that was outside of the organization. Those were really impactful, especially for somebody out of state to see how embedded an organization is in the community and those different relationships. So having two of them from internal was not as beneficial. And that was it. Otherwise, I was, yeah, same notes as Suzanne across the board.
All right, Karis.
I have nothing to add.
All right, Danielle.
Nothing new to add. I think everyone else really covered a lot of the same notes and comments I had.
Okay, then let's move on. Check your notes, and when you're ready, the thumbs up sign. Okay, looks like we're ready to move on. Next.
All right. The next application is from the High Plains Arts Council, which is located in Sidney, Nebraska. And this grant is for operational support for fiscal year 2026.
All right, Karis.
All righty, another great application. I believe I wrote down 8 public performances, 1 in-house performance, 1 week residency that I think is also tied to the school district, and 3 different kinds of workshops. They have collaborations, some of everywhere. Chamber of Commerce, which is always something I'm trying to get into with Mid-America, is the Chamber of Commerce. So I'm a little jealous. A Chamber of Commerce, public schools, local dance studios. I noticed that the audience development is vital to the programming. I enjoyed that the board seems to be very active throughout this entire application, from the programming to the audience to the fundraising and outreach. Of course, that's how we would all like it to be. It's not always the case, but I enjoyed that it was really built into the application. And their evaluation efforts also seem to be pretty straightforward and direct, and thorough. They monitor Facebook comments, for instance, direct feedback from the audience, along with tracking everything else, numbers, sales, all of those good things. So I didn't really have anything that stood out as of right now. I enjoyed the strategic plan. It felt pretty clear to me. But yeah, I think I scored them. They got a perfect score on my end.
Hey, Hannah?
Yes, this is also one of my higher scoring applications. I'd like to uplift the explanations of utilizing both local and national artists. I thought was really well done. As a panelist, I'm always looking at what the investment is locally versus externally outside of state, and that was really well presented. I also appreciated they did mention, and I'm trying to find exactly where, but they had mentioned that they had done a really big investment in some immense survey efforts in the 24 to 25 season. Just curious how they found that, if it was helpful for them, if they'd like to continue with that like amount of work, or if that was more of like a field scan kind of investment, right? That they might only do once in a while. I wanted to applaud this organization for the wide variety of thought out performers. There was so much diversity in the performers while maintaining a really sleek budget. That it was pretty outstanding. And then I do also want to uplift, this was one of the only applications that specifically mentioned bringing Native perspectives into their considerations for programming. And I thought that spoke really highly to understanding community and who is attending their performances. That's it for me.
Okay, then Suzanne.
Yes, I totally agree with both Hannah and Karis. And I think that sometimes when you include an anecdote in a narrative, it can mean so much. And I really like when they talked about Steve Tamayo's residencies and the relationship that he has with the Sydney Public Schools. It's in Cheyenne County, so I was kind of stumbling there a minute. The anecdote of the way that Steve drew out a student who is non-proficient in English, I think is a great illustration of how cultural learning can lead to empathy and understanding. And to kind of continue that relationship with Steve, because again, Sydney is almost in Wyoming and Steve lives in Omaha. So the fact that Steve makes that commitment and the community of Sydney makes that commitment, I think is really wonderful. And kudos to Sydney. Sydney has gone through a lot of upheaval due to the loss of a major business in that community. And I think, as has been stated, that kind of weaving of everyone that's important, Chamber of Commerce, they seem to all support each other. And that tiny little volunteer board does a fantastic job.
Okay, thank you. Danielle?
I think my colleagues have done a really great job. I'm not sure I have anything additional to add that would go beyond what they've already said.
Okay, thank you. So take a minute to check your scores. Okay, then let's move on. Rachel?
All right, our next application is from the Nebraska Jazz Orchestra, which is located in Lincoln, Nebraska. And this grant
Okay.
is for operational support for fiscal year 2026.
Suzanne?
Okay, Nebraska Jazz Orchestra is one of those, wow, you have this in your community organizations that fulfills the desire of jazz enthusiasts to experience live performance on a regular basis. Due to using the Cornhusker Hotel as their performance venue, they do not have dates for their 26-27 season, but they did provide an outline of their themes and guest artists. I think in addition to providing opportunities for local and guest musicians to play, their great strength is their work with area schools. Their Jazz Goes to School program and sponsoring the Young Lions All-Star Band statewide competition and the competition for the Young Jazz Artist provides a deep connection between the organization and area music educators. And I think for kids that, are in the school band, or if they're lucky enough to have a school orchestra as well, and may like to explore jazz a little bit more, Lincoln is just very lucky that it has this organization that can help guide kids that have an interest in jazz in that direction. I was confused by their strategic plan. A strategic plan should be an actionable document that lays out goals and objectives with strategies to meet them. One of the key purposes of undertaking strategic planning is to vision what stakeholders want to see for the organization's future. What I read was a summary of what NJO is with bulleted points that start with continue to and NJO should continue to, which means to me that it's more of an analysis and summary of current operations. NJO is part of Arts Inc., an arts management company that provides a variety of services to its clients. NJO included the entire personnel list as the staff list for NJO. I had to spend a lot of time finding which staff members work with the orchestra. It would have been so helpful if the staff list had been created as a separate document listing just the staff that performs services for NJO. It would give me a much better sense of what's going on. This would be an opportunity to provide more information on the strategies they employ to undertake audience development or initiate collaborative ventures, for example, since the narrative itself simply lists the names of the organizations. There's a comprehensive list of organizations to which NJO offers free and reduced tickets. This would be a perfect opportunity to undertake data gathering from year to year for the number of organizations that take advantage of the opportunity. This would help the orchestra assess their success in this endeavor. More data and specificity is provided in their discussion of educational activities, which allows me to state that their Jazz 101 and Jazz Goes to School programs are innovative and comprehensive. Having said that, by stating these efforts have seen a significant increase in attendance is just begging for statistics to back that up. I was disappointed in their response to education of state and local policymakers. We are in a crisis where public funding for the arts is being both questioned and eliminated. Active advocacy efforts to contact both federal and state lawmakers are called for by nonprofit arts organizations if they wish to receive grants. It's that simple. If Arts Inc. is not a member of Nebraska's advocacy organization, Nebraskans for the Arts, I strongly encourage them to enroll on behalf of their organizations and actively participate.
Okay, thank you. Hannah?
I agree with 100% of what Suzanne just said, and a couple of things I would uplift in addition is, and I would defer to my fellow panelists here, especially as somebody who is out of state. So for my in-state folks, if there's additional performance spaces available, and that's a big if, because I understand location, But I'm curious how the decision to work with it, it's a hotel, I believe, that they work with consistently. Just curious, like why? What makes that a good space for you, for your community? Is it centrally located? Is it accessible? Do you get a great rate on the space? All of those things are very valid. I would just like to know a little bit about that, especially considering it's the only location they perform at. And then I would also uplift the no evidence of a formal evaluation process from attendees or musicians was a bit of a flag for me. And I was curious about how the outreach methods that were indicated are stated as new. And so I was just curious, maybe what was the reason that they decided to change their outreach methods? Have those been successful? Will they continue with those? Just any sort of data or strategy behind that would be really helpful. And that's it for me.
Okay, Danielle?
Yeah, thanks, Hannah and Suzanne. I think you've really identified some of the question marks I had myself as well with this application. I think the biggest takeaway is I just needed more information about a lot of stuff. There was a lot of details that were missing for me. I will just echo and agree that the planning and evaluation just needs more measurable benchmarks, more evaluation methods. I just didn't really get that from this application as much as I would have liked. I would also say that in terms of the plan to build more diverse audiences and feature artists of color and women guest artists, there wasn't any clear outcomes tied to these outreach efforts. So again, like really just not having enough detailed information about how some of these things are happening, or what the decision-making processes are would have really helped me understand their application better.
Karis?
Yes, thank you, everyone. You all, I think we're echoing each other. The only thing I'd like to add for the record for NJO is to separate their evergreen responsibilities from their strategic plan. There are some things that it is kind of baked into the work that you do. So in the future, perhaps that could be pulled out, clear goals for each of your areas and departments, and measurements to achieve those things.
Okay, terrific. Go ahead and relook at your scores and thumbs up. Okay, Rachel, next.
Our next application is from the North Platte Community Playhouse, which is located in North Platte, Nebraska. And this grant will provide operational support to the North Platte Community Playhouse for fiscal year 2026.
Okay, first is Hannah.
Thank you so much. All right, so for the artistic excellence criteria, I noted that this application provides evidence of local and national bookings, which again, love the information about why that's happening, and especially the notes they provided about focusing on always maintaining acting opportunities for locals. I thought that was a really important piece of narrative. I would have liked more information about what responsiveness from this organization looks like. For example, when they receive feedback, how is it considered or applied? That would be helpful to know, how are they hearing their community and responding? And then I really appreciate, again, as an out-of-stater, hearing the case about the theater's location and its ability to support arts access from where they are was really important. Generally, this organization has a traditional take on programming, some artistic choices, some more accessible pieces for bigger audiences. I would appreciate more information about who within the organization makes programming choices for the stage productions. Is it your board? Is it a committee of some sort? That'll just let me know who's making the choices and how fueled by the community is that. And then my final notes for outreach and engagement. Overall, I thought this criteria was well supported. I appreciated the information about future marketing practices, placed an effort to recruit young adults, showed a lot of awareness about their needs. The advocacy component in this application could be a bit stronger regarding future plans, but I appreciated the letter of support that they had from a representative, and they have obvious connections that they demonstrated throughout the application. So overall, I scored this one pretty high. Yeah, felt pretty like a very robust application.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne?
Yeah, Hannah pretty much covered most of what I wanted to talk about. Just a couple of small things. I can find them here. Oh, I did like their list of strategies that they use to kind of gather information about their audiences. They're monitoring their Facebook page for comments and interaction, which I think is great. Using a combination QR code and paper survey after performances, I think is great too. I mean, that reaches younger audiences, but also people like myself who doesn't want to get out a phone and take pictures and poke the screen and do that. I think that's great. And I don't know, I'm old school. I think the idea of going out and prowling the parking lot, or in this case, the street, to count license plates, particularly in a state like Nebraska, is just wonderful. Now, I don't know if when they mentioned visitors from Hawaii and the Virgin Islands, that those were people that drove their vehicles to Nebraska. But anyway, I still think that that's certainly a valid way, particularly in a rural community, to kind of get a sense of who is coming to their performances. I'd like to know a little bit more about how they're interacting with their creative district. North Platte has one, I know, and actually I think it's one of the first creative districts after the legislation passed, or one of the earlier ones. And I'm not quite sure what the overall concept is for the creative district, and how the Playhouse kind of fits into that. In response to what Hannah said about the advocacy, well, yeah, to have the state senator who lives in your community and who is an active supporter of your theater, I think, they're kind of resting on their laurels a little bit. And also the fact, I can state that his wife, Julie, is actually on the Nebraska Arts Council board. So I think that North Platte has got great representation in arts leadership in that community that they're very lucky to have and should celebrate. But I agree with Hannah that you can't rest on your laurels. You got to continue kind of plowing that row. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Karis?
I have nothing to add.
All right, Danielle?
Nothing new to add. I think my only feedback is just a little bit more data about showing some of these efforts, but otherwise I felt like this was a solid application.
Okay, go ahead and look at your scores and readjust. Okay, then let's move on. Rachel?
The next application is from the Tassel Performing Arts Center, which is in Holdridge, Nebraska. And this grant will provide operational support to the Tassel Performing Arts Center for fiscal year 2026-27.
All right, Suzanne?
This application was an interesting read. The narrative was more opinion-driven than quantitative, which meant I had to dig deeper to extract information to make an assessment. I think their season offerings are great. There is something for everyone, and several that I would consider, if not cutting edge, certainly ones that provide more thought-provoking than a Beatles sing-along, which, don't get me wrong, we all need once in a while. I don't know if Tycho project had been performed before this application was submitted, but if it was, it would have been great to learn how attendance was and any comments that were received about it, since there seemed to be some kind of concern about these kinds of projects being accepted in the community. Having said that, the narrative states that audience reaction, which is continually enthusiastic, so I'm sure they enjoyed Tycho project. The narrative continues along this positive vein, but it's more observational than explanatory. Do they use after-concert surveys, occasional focus groups or patrons, board discussions during meetings, listing whatever strategies are used, and then providing a couple of anecdotes would have made things clearer. The narrative states that maintaining artistic excellence depends in large part on careful selection of and strong involvement from the board members. They are actively involved in the review and selection. This sounds like a job description for a board committee, but I did not see that they had one in their board list document. I like that they also include non-board patrons, which could certainly be part of a committee description, and perhaps they might consider adding others, like a couple of high school students. The strategic plan itself does contain all of the essential elements of a strategic plan, but the work plan element would be a more useful document if there was a tracking component. For example, Goal 2 concerns upgrades to their technical equipment with bulleted steps. Since the plan was implemented in 2024, it would be nice to know what their progress is on this. Perhaps this information is in another document, and if so, it would have been great to have that attached to this one. Evaluative evidence of success for the tassel can be gleaned from their budget. 30% of their income is ticket sales, and 56% is unearned income from foundations, show sponsors, and their friends campaign. This tells me that they have a great community support. Goal number 1 of their strategic plan has a bulleted point for increasing ticket sales, but how will that be measured? Even working towards a modest goal of 3 to 5% increase for the following year can be a cause for celebration. I found the fundraising and development section of the narrative to be solid, though. It is clearly laid out and provides detail. The strategies are solid and commendable. Bravo to the Tassel for their collaboration with the Iron Horse Creative Districts and the Momentum Dance Academy. It's clear from both the letters of support from both the Chamber of Commerce and Momentum that these are valued partnerships. And I can't wait to see the mural the next time I'm in Holdridge. While the narrative states that we do not have much opportunity to find and engage with new audiences, it appears to me that they're having success in engaging their small immigrant communities. Again, to measure this more definitively, tracking participation from year to year would show this. I'm glad the Tassel extends thank you letters to elected officials, even if they've gone on record opposing funding. The Tassel is doing important work that the community is embracing, and I don't think Holdridge would have been awarded a creative district designation if the community wasn't behind its Performing Arts Center, as has been demonstrated by the application. Those are my remarks.
Thank you. Karis?
I think Suzanne hit on all the points. I also thought quite a bit about the evaluation and the evaluation process as being dependent on audience reaction, like sponsorship and praise. It's a little bit of a dangerous place to be sometimes, although it seems that they're doing fantastic work. But perhaps there's a different way of tracking and understanding that work. Similarly, with the education and the outreach, I found that to be, I wanted to know more about the education and the outreach in the future. I love that they are engaging in people of color in their immigrant communities in this area. But there's always someone, even if it's one person, maybe two people that we're not reaching. And then how do we reach that person? But other than that, I think Suzanne hit the nail on the head.
Okay, Danielle?
Yeah, not too much to add. I appreciated their dedication to maintaining artistic quality while also trying new programming ideas. I think that the work samples and strategic plan helped reinforce their commitment to artistic excellence, although I wanted to see more impact or more detail on how artistic impact is measured beyond audience enthusiasm. Similarly, the evaluation process, I wanted to see more measurable benchmarks or long-term evaluation tools. And again, similarly, I appreciated their efforts to engage diverse audiences, but I wanted to see more demographic data or examples showing the long-term impact of those outreach efforts. So again, I think they're doing really good, important work. I thought the application was strong and thoughtful, but there was just some holes in the application that I wanted to see more information for.
Thank you. Hannah?
Yeah, I just wanted to add for this applicant that there were some sections that really bordered on some deficit-based language. And it was interesting because it was in terms of participants and community members. It was very much about like, we don't have more people to do outreach to, or our organization, like the community doesn't like higher art forms, things like that. I would just speak to, it was a little bit difficult to read that, we can't program what we want because the audience isn't city dwellers. That was essentially a sentence that was in here. And I would just, maybe lean into what they are being drawn to, what things have your audiences really latched onto, or maybe new things that you didn't expect people to turn out for, but they did. And maybe there's places to grow from there. Yeah, it was just something that I would like to uplift as something that could be really powerful for this application in the future. I would also just mention that two of the work samples were not available. They provided links instead of linking it appropriately. So I wasn't able to access those. So I just wanted to mention that as well. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and check your scores. Okay, then let's move on.
Our next application is from the Valentine Area Arts Council, which is located in Valentine, Nebraska. This grant will provide operational support to the Valentine Area Arts Council for fiscal year 2026.
Okay, Danielle?
Yeah, so I thought this was a very heartfelt application from an organization that clearly plays an important role in a rural part of the state. I think they have a lot of care in what they do, and are really dedicated to providing arts engagement and accessibility. They clearly have a board and leadership that wants to create more live arts experiences. I would encourage them to think about how they are articulating this vision for creating these experiences and thinking a little bit more deeply about that. While their programming is focused on how they're engaging with their community, I think that it could go beyond the decision making on certain of their artists, that is just beyond audience appeal, or what they are identifying as audience appeal. Let's see. I think that they have a really strong commitment to their strategic planning and ongoing reflection of their organization. I thought the plan was organized and aligned with their mission and guiding principles. I was really glad to see that the board revisits the plan annually and regularly has discussions about successes, challenges, and feedback. I think that I would encourage them to continue to strengthen some of the evaluation practices that they have, and thinking a little bit more about measurable outcomes. There was a lot of anecdotal feedback and general observations, which are really valuable. But again, I think it would just be beneficial to have a few more concrete metrics around audience growth and goals. I think there was also an opportunity to strengthen organizational capacity. It's clear that they're doing a tremendous amount of work with a very small team. And so I think just continued attention to succession planning, volunteer development, and sustainability will really help them as they continue to grow. It was great to see they have really strong community partnerships. I mean, particularly with the schools, the library, assisted living facilities, local arts and tourism initiatives, and the Heart City Creative District. I felt like these partnerships were authentic and really beneficial to all parties rather than just simply a transactional symbolic relationship. Yeah, I think overall, the passion really comes through for this organization. I think that they care really deeply about what they do and the service that they provide. And for a small team, they're doing quite a bit.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne?
Yeah, I agree with everything Danielle has said. When I got the document of the bios of the panel and noticed, Arizona and Maine, it made me think, how to characterize Valentine. And this application really gives you a glimpse into a unique culture that is virtually unknown in the rest of the US. Cherry County I just kind of looked it up, is only 500 square miles smaller than the state of Connecticut. So that's the area that they are serving. And when they talk about the little kind of one-room schools that still exist, I mean, we're talking Little House on the Prairie days there, but that's the way it is in this community. And I appreciate it, even though I totally agree with everything Danielle said that can improve, I think, the application and the kind of window and who they are as an organization. I like the narrative and the kind of step by step, because when you're a town of 2,000 people, a lot of it is actually face-to-face communication. And something that I think really demonstrates this culture is their season flyer. So if you looked at the season flyer, it gives all of what they're going to be presenting. But if you notice at the bottom third, it was all about why we need money. Because I'm sure that people either in the community or the ranchers that often come into town to do something are asking them, why do you need money from us? Well, they're going to tell you why. And they're going to give you a pie chart to tell you exactly where that money has to come from and what it's spent on. And that to me is just so much part of the Sandhills ranching community. They cut to the chase and they will not hesitate to tell you things like this. So to me, that was just a perfect example, and they know how to handle it. They mentioned the Bull Bash, which I had no idea what that was and why. I thought, okay, what does this have to do with what they're doing? And so I looked it up, and I learned that it is kind of like a product convention in a way, that they bring their prize bulls into Valentine. And they mentioned that they have little corrals set up on the main street with these bulls from each one of the ranchers that has one. Because of course, when you're in cattle production, you don't always have often artificial insemination is used for your herd. And anyway, I won't go into it. I can see people are kind of doing this, but as you can tell, I'm very enthusiastic about the whole idea of that. But anyway, what amazed me is that they have a judging component that includes cattle judging teams from colleges from as far away as California that come to do this kind of judging. And so, well, yeah, duh. Why wouldn't that be a good place to have, your little stand and advertise what you're doing for your season? I mean, you're not necessarily capturing somebody from California, but you certainly know that the rest of your broad community is going to be in town for the Bull Bash. So I thought those strategies were really great. I have one thing I would like to suggest to them, and this has to do with their residencies. I know they've had Garen Coons come to perform, and I thought that they might want to consider talking it to the Arts Council about Steve Tamayo, who's Lakota, who has familial connections with the Rosebud, which is just 11 miles north of where they are in South Dakota. And actually, he graduated from Singa Gleska University in Mission, South Dakota. So I'm thinking that given the native population that is in the Valentine area, that it might not be a bad idea to see if Steve would be available, just like he is in Sydney. And this certainly is more his home territory anyway, to do a residency for the Valentine schools. Potentially, if that is something that may be cost prohibitive, perhaps maybe the Nebraska Arts Council could work in collaboration with the South Dakota Arts Council to see if there couldn't be some sort of Valentine Mission South Dakota residency, joint residency situation that could bring Steve, because after all, he just won a National Endowment for the Arts Heritage Fellowship last year. And I know he's in great demand, but certainly he should be celebrated in this area. And so that's just a suggestion for the use for the future. And that's all I have to add.
Thank you. Hannah?
I just wanted to uplift. I really appreciated how financially savvy this group is. As you uplifted, this is a really rural area, and being so financially savvy with their partnerships. I mean, this is a group that knows what they're working with and is going to make things happen. Let me see if there's any other different ones. I appreciated that this organization mentioned that they're flexible and they're ready to jump in when there's a conversation opening for them to be a part of. And I thought that was really important as a rural organization of this size to be like, we're ready. We're going to jump into, like, whether or not it's a main street fair or a conversation with the legislator, we're going to be in that space. So I just wanted to uplift, like, that's some real go-getter, we're making this happen attitude. And I really appreciate that.
Okay, Karis?
I have nothing to add. I think everyone took all of my talking points. Thank you.
Okay. Adjust scores then? Okay. The very last one, Rachel.
All right. Our last application is from the West Nebraska Arts Center, which is located in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. And this grant will provide operational support to the West Nebraska Arts Center for fiscal year 2026.
All right, Danielle?
Yeah, this is a good one to end on. I really felt this to be a strong application from an organization that's really committed to providing consistent and varied programming in a rural region. I felt like they had a good understanding of the importance of arts in Western Nebraska. And they showed a breadth of exhibitions and educational offerings planned throughout the year. Sorry, I just had a notification pop up and that just derailed me. Exhibitions like the Chimney Rock Collaborative, or the Chimney Rock Collaborative Exhibition, the Visionary Student Show, the Cirrus House Mental Health Partnership. There's just really a really great commitment to both artistic exploration as well as community relevance. I felt like their work samples helped reinforce a lot of this about their commitment to good artistic programming as well as community engagement. I was really encouraged by their intentionality about having their gallery committee to really kind of emphasize their commitment to artistic quality. They included artists, educators, and art supporters all in that curatorial process, which I felt was a really great investment. Let's see here. I really appreciated their honesty and transparency around where they are at with their planning and evaluation. It's clear that the staff and volunteers are all really deeply invested in making programs successful. I thought their strategic plan was well organized and had a really solid framework for what they hope to do through 2028. I think that they have a pretty realistic understanding of some of their operational challenges, particularly related to staffing capacity and maintaining a historic facility. And in terms of their budget, it seemed to appear balanced and diversified, with good support coming from earned revenue, memberships, foundations, local government, etc. Again, I feel like, they're doing so much, and this is kind of minor, but some of the evaluation practices could be strengthened. I think it relies heavily on attendance numbers and informal feedback and internal discussion, which is useful, but I think they could maybe think about some more formalized evaluation methods. And let's see. I appreciated their efforts in engaging policymakers and advocacy. I thought that they were doing a good job of inviting policymakers to events and having ongoing communication and civic participation. Overall, I think that they've got some really solid partnerships that really appear authentic rather than transactional. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Karis?
I think Danielle got all those points, got all of my points. We share the same points, whatever I'm trying to say this morning. Fantastic, Danielle. I also think the audience development for, let me make sure that I get it right. There we go, West Nebraska Art Center. I wanted to say Western Nebraska, so I wanted to make sure I got that right. But I really appreciated and just wanted to uplift how they're continuing to analyze themselves and the community that they serve and pivot their programming to meet their community. Other than that, I think Danielle got all those other points.
All right, thank you. Suzanne?
I really don't have anything else to add, but I do want to say Creative Beet Art District. Took me a while, but because sugar beets is a major thing, that manufacturing of sugar from sugar beets. But it took me a while to kind of go, oh yeah, I get it now. So that doesn't need to go on the record. That's just me. But Danielle and Karis said everything that I would have said.
All right, Hannah?
Yeah, the only note that I haven't heard yet is I was surprised that, unless I'm completely off, because I did have to Google their mission statement. It wasn't on their application. It's that they're the window to the arts, I believe it's something along those lines. And it's very obvious this is a visual art specific. At least I didn't see a lot of other disciplines. So I was confused when I reached the information about engagement with legislators, and they specifically said they engage with bills impacting visual arts. And I just thought that was weirdly specific, because I would think that they would be a little bit more involved as an arts council, and especially as one without a mission that's specific to a discipline. I was curious if it was a typo at first, but then on reevaluating, they really only speak about visual arts. Unless I'm incorrect, somebody can let me know. That was my interpretation of it. So I did score a little bit lower on that component, just because it didn't seem as congruent with their mission as I would expect. That's it for me.
Okay. Go
Sherry,
ahead.
can
Yeah.
I respond? I think
Sure.
there is another, the Performing Arts organization in Scottsbluff is in a different category. It's a larger organization. And so I think the specificity really is focused on what they are doing, which is just that's their niche in Scottsbluff. Now, having said that, I think your comments are totally valid but I can see where they are very focused on what their part of it, I think is how they see it. This is our part. And the Performing Arts Center, that's their part. Is kind of probably, I think, the mindset there.
I hear that. And that's also smart for capacity. So maybe in the future, throw a little blurb in there that's
Yeah,
the intention,
totally.
because I think that does speak strongly to their capacity to advocate effectively, being specific about what they're working on. So yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you for filling me in.
Okay, everybody look at your scores and let me know when you're ready. Okay, I think we're ready to move on then. We have finished all of them. Congratulations. So now that the applications have been discussed and scored, we're going to take a 5-minute break. During this time, then the NAC staff will tally all the scores up and prepare the information, so we'll have our final discussion. When the panelists reconvene, we'll review the procedures and make final determinations. Grant applicants will be notified in June about the funding decision for their applications, but this final portion of the meeting is closed to the public. And at this time, we'll say goodbye to applicants and members of the public who have joined in. And with that, we will take a 5-minute break.
Can we come back at top of the hour? It gives Jennifer just a couple of extra minutes.